Hello Internet, welcome back to Tromsø Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the Abyss, about books, movies, music I enjoy, find interesting, or a combination of the two. Back in the 90s, like basically everybody else who owned a guitar, I was a fan of Nirvana. And when I was about 13, 14 years old, I discovered this vinyl, The Priest They Called Him, which featured William S Burroughs and Kurt Cobain. I found it in my local HMV, which was a kind of record store chain in the United Kingdom. I believe that at that time I had also read Queer by Burroughs, although I'm not 100% sure. I certainly read it around the same time. And I got this vinyl, I asked for it for Christmas, and I imagined that maybe Burroughs was going to be singing or reading, and that Kurt Cobain maybe would be playing acoustic guitar or something. Now, this record is a picture disc. There were originally 5,000 released. I have got 3,289. I guess it's not that limited edition when there are 5,000 of them, but it's kind of beautiful. And here you have the priest from the title of the story, and that is actually Chris Novoselic from Nirvana dressed up as the priest from Burroughs' story. And on the back, you have William Burroughs and Kurt Cobain's signatures. Kurt Cobain with one of his signature strange spellings of his surname. So I got this for Christmas. I was excited to listen to it. It's a 45. It's only a few minutes long. And when I first listened to it, I was kind of disappointed. It opens with a really discordant, distorted version of Silent Night on the guitar. It's just the first few notes of Silent Night, and then it kind of drops into this shaky, thin noise of feedback. And it's not like a note, it's like just a kind of sound, like a shuddering sound feedback on the guitar. I wasn't really knowledgeable enough about music at the time to hear the noise influences in what Kurt Cobain was doing. It sounded to me just like he hadn't come up with anything to play at the time. I also wasn't knowledgeable enough to notice that what he was doing with Silent Night was basically a reference to Jimi Hendrix playing Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock. Now, the reason that he's playing Silent Night is because The Priest They Called Him is actually a Christmas story by William Burroughs called The Junkie Christmas. It's a story of the titular priest who's a heroin addict, like many of Burroughs' central characters. And it's a very kind of black humor story about a guy who needs to get a heroin fix. So he finds a suitcase. He thinks maybe I can sell this suitcase for a small amount of money and get some heroin. And when he opens the suitcase, it has a pair of amputated legs in it. So it's presumably one of several suitcases after a murder. He just throws away the legs and sells the suitcase. The guy he sells it to thinks it smells funny, so he only gives him 3 cents for the suitcase. But with these 3 cents, the priest is able to score a small amount of morphine from a crooked doctor. Burroughs reads this in his signature sardonic style, but he kind of almost does a voice for the doctor, a sort of irritated high voice. He's a little bit playful. He has this kind of sarcasm. And actually, it's one of Burroughs' better pieces of writing. Like at the end of the story, it turns from being this kind of bleak, slightly humorous story into something a little more touching as the priest gives his heroin to the boy who lives in the next room in the flop house where he lives, who's also addicted and is disabled with a great deal of pain. The priest dies at the end of the story. Spoiler alert, sorry. And the way Burroughs describes this, he talks about something like all the grey junk yesterdays, and then he talks about death as the immaculate fix, and he ends by saying, since he was himself a priest, there was no need to call one. It's very poetic and actually extremely well written. It reminds me that Burroughs could write very well, very economically and evocatively, even though he spent a lot of time kind of performing on the page and did all of his cut-up experiments and everything and made a lot of very weird experimental work. And to my ear today, what Kurt Cobain is doing is actually quite interesting. I think it's like a one-take improvisation that was recorded straight to DAT, probably on like a very simple microphone. It's very thin sounding. And the kind of experimental noise textures that he's creating with his effects pedals and his guitar is sort of pushing guitar playing into a almost non-musical, music concrete type of space. Um, it reminds me maybe more of Throbbing Gristle than it does of something like Sonic Youth. And I kind of think that this is just a sort of strange and weird little literary musical experiment that I'm actually quite happy that I own it now. I listened to it today in order to make this video, and it kind of transported me. So, wondering, do you have a copy? Do you know this recording? Are you interested in Burroughs? There are a lot of quite interesting musical collaborations with Burroughs that I'd be interested to hear if you know any of those or if you enjoy any of them. Um, yeah, and I guess that's it for me for now. I just wanted to talk briefly about this record, this artifact, this moment in time. It was made in 1992, and just bring it to your attention if you hadn't heard about it, or reminisce a little if you know of it. Thanks for listening. Hopefully, I'll see you again soon.